My name's Owen Hablutzel, and I'm a consultant, an educator, and a group facilitator working in the general direction of regenerative agriculture with all of those roles. And so part of the work I do is I'm an accredited Savory Institute educator, and so that plays into the education side. It also plays into the consulting side, as well as the group facilitation side. For example, facilitating a group to create their vision, their holistic context, and get that into a written form that the group is then able to use with the decision-making process. I first heard about holistic management while I was at a keyline design course that was taught by Darren Doherty. That was in 2007. And one of the other students in the course, which is often the value of going to any course, is the other students that you meet, aside from obviously the amazing information that gets passed at these courses. But so this student, we were having a discussion outside of class about regenerative agriculture in general, permaculture. Obviously, keyline was what we were there to learn about, and given my sort of focus that I had on larger landscapes, he mentioned if I had heard. He asked me if I had heard of Alan Savory, and I hadn't at that point. I said no. He's like in holistic management. And I said, oh, I think maybe I saw something about it somewhere, but I didn't really know anything about it. And he said, yeah, I think that's something you're going to want to look into. And of course he was right. Well, there's many ways that the practice of regenerative agriculture would restore our rural communities as well as urban communities, for that matter. So it's hard to maybe pick out just one, but the major thing is, of course, by restoring ecosystem processes. That process of growing food in a regenerative fashion is going to restore healthy ecosystem process, healthy water cycle, nutrient cycle, community dynamics, and energy flow to those communities, which ultimately is the basis for the economic security of those regions. And the process of doing that can build in more work, more local employment, more local jobs, more local incomes to support those communities, because you need more people on the land doing this stuff to do it. So, so that would be another way. Also, just by the actual food that's produced is going to restore communities, because people would naturally become healthier if they're eating healthier food produced in a healthier landscape. So you're going to reduce, your costs of healthcare, for example, greatly the more people are eating that way. Customer has the biggest role of all in healing landscapes, and that's just the choices they make every day as to what to eat and what products that they want to consume. Both food, fiber, any products that agriculture is producing, which is most products that we use at the end of the day. So every single dollar they spend is going towards building soil or losing soil, towards creating healthy ecosystem processes or degenerating healthy ecosystem processes. So that's the most critical role, is the consumer out there. And of course, the more of those dollars that are going in a regenerative direction, the more farmers and ranchers and agricultural endeavors that are moving in a positive direction that can support, because the income is flowing that direction, the financial pieces are flowing that direction. So it's a it's the critical role as the consumer. That's ultimately what all of us are at the bottom as consumers. It's just a basic fact of biology, of metabolism. We have to consume in order to keep going, to regenerate our bodies on a day-to-day basis. And so the choices we make about how to do that are the most important ones of all. Well, research can certainly play a role. We can team with academia, with sciences, in demonstrating sort of the ecological benefits as well as the social benefits. Because of course, ultimately, those can't be separated. We all live in social ecological systems. It's a single whole. As holistic management explains, nature functions in wholes, and humans are part of nature. We can't pretend otherwise, or we certainly can. We've been pretending otherwise, and that's kind of what's got us to the edge of the precipice here where we're at. But we can turn that around by acknowledging that we are part of that whole and by managing wholes. And so research on that, on how, on the social as well as the ecological benefits of managing that way, can help communicate that to larger groups of people. And you know, there's been traditionally some resistance among particularly the range sciences to some of this new innovation. And so research can help to address some of those concerns as well. One that gives the most hope, my vision of the future that gives the most hope. I know hope is important to a lot of people. I'm not one of those people. I feel like the right thing to do is the right thing to do, and I don't need hope to sustain that necessarily. I know this is a little bit tricky, and it's how you define hope, perhaps. I think despair is just as important to being regenerative as hope is. Despair is what actually gets a lot of people to be regenerative. Not that you hang on to the despair and you wallow in it, but it can be a phase that's important for people to sit with and let it flow through them. It can be very motivating, actually. For some people, even more motivating maybe than hope. To achieve a vision of a better world. So in any case, sometimes I've seen hope become a crutch, where if you're on a jet plane that's about to crash, you hope you don't crash. You don't necessarily have agency in that situation, and that's where it can become a crutch, is just saying, well, I hope somebody does something about that, or I hope the planet doesn't collapse, or but it's could be an impediment to action if we're not careful. On the other hand, if we're just talking about hope as, as the basically faith in the universe, let's say, faith that self-organization is a very powerful force at work that we can partner with, that humans can partner with, that although our species in the Anthropocene is recognized as being literally a geologic force moving more earth and sediment than all the streams and rivers, that actually can be a positive thing. In other words, that power, that impact, that ability to impact earth system processes, ecosystem processes, social processes can be turned in a positive direction. And so it's not that we have to reduce our impact at all. It's that we need to keep that impact or even increase it, just change the direction of it. To me, that's very powerful as far as speaking to our ability as humans to positively impact the planet. I think that holistic management is extraordinarily important. It's an incredible insight. Following on the insights of Jan Smuts with the of holism from 1926. Even Einstein, who read that book at that time, said that in the next century that Smuts' holism, as well as his own relativity, were going to be the two important drivers of thinking. And Alan picked that ball up, as well as many of the other versions of system thinking. But Alan picked it up in a very practical way to apply to agriculture, apply to landscapes, this concept of holism. And I do think it's critical. I do think it's really, if we're able to start managing holistically, we start managing wholes, we'll be far more effective at achieving the vision that we're after.